So plenty of time.
Fine.
Hi, Sandra.
Okay, then we can, yes, hello. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Jens. Hi, Priyanka, you made it in. Great. I can see you. And Alexandra was there already. That's great. And Anna-Marie, I think then with Jens also we can do the content checks, let's say.
Okay.
And, everyone can hear me properly. And Priyanka, I didn't hear your voice. Just quickly.
Sure.
Yes.
Check. Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello. Quick question. So we will be introduced at some point. We don't need to say nothing about ourselves, correct? Like, okay.
No,
double checking.
No, not correct. On the contrary, yes. I will ask you each to introduce yourself.
You will ask. Okay.
Yeah, ask you who you are, what you're working on, and one hope that you have for the future of urbanization. And if you could do these things in 30 seconds maximum, that would be fantastic.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any slides to test or videos or anything like that?
Yes,
slides.
maybe Jens, would we, so just to pick up on our previous conversation that we started, maybe could you test sharing your screen so that we can see how it works?
I'll do that. So that's a presentation. Can you see my screen?
No, not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. And
You still have spotlight on
I have
Anne-Marie.
spotlight on Anne-Marie, yes.
If you have spotlight on Anne-Marie and someone else shares, I don't know if that will.
Oh, good point. Okay, then I will spotlight. Add spotlight or replace spotlight then. Yeah, let's see. I see you, Jens, and not the presentation yet.
Yeah. Just a second now.
Just to let you know, this live stream is working absolutely fine and all the interpreters are ready to go. So
great, good to know. We still have one speaker missing, but I know that Martin is joining at 3 o'clock.
Perfect, and no problem at all. You still have 14 minutes before the session begins.
Yeah.
All right, now I think I know why it was not working.
Yeah, we can see.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, now it's working.
Okay. I'll just quickly go through the slide just to also arrange with where I stop and when you take over. So I'll just have 2 slides for presenting myself, and then there's 2 parts: the urbanization trends, which is related with the first poll. So that's an explanation I will give. I see my intern put some visualization things. I didn't know that, and I don't like it actually, so I'll try to change that. So these are just some numbers about the scale and the rate of urbanization, and then I would have one question which is related with this slide. And so this is something to look at with you, like so this is actually the answer. So I don't know whether you would take that on your slide or if I bring that on.
I think you could keep it. Maybe if I can try to simultaneously share my screen, which I would do. So say this is your last slide before the answer. If you could keep it on the last slide before your answer is this one, right?
Yeah. But actually I see that the question is missing. Oh, look, I'll quickly change that.
We need the question.
So it's most important is to know.
Mm-hmm.
So most important is like if this would be the one with the question, I just saw that the question is missing, so I don't know what happened, but I'll have a look at it quickly. Then it changes to you, the Mentimeter.
Can
right?
you now see two screens, or you just see my screen?
For me, it's making me choose view options and then choose your screen.
So what I then think we should do, so you're not able to see two screens kind of like next to each other, is that correct?
Doesn't look like it, no, unless we hit spotlight both of you, but
Is it a matter of spotlighting? Do I need to do something?
I could try that a second, add spotlight, and then try, but it doesn't look like it's changed.
Okay, Jens, what I then suggest that we do is that after that we just have to like tap back and forth a little bit. So I will then, after your last slide, which does not have the question, I will start sharing my screen with Mentimeter. People go there. The question is actually posted in there. And then when we need the answer, then I will stop sharing screen and you give your screen again. And then for the second trend, we do the same thing. Would that be okay for you?
Okay. Good. All right. So then it's just a matter of I have to put the question again. I don't know what happened. So I'll just
don't
stop.
worry. You don't have to put the question because I have the question
Okay.
in my slides. Yeah.
The question comes directly with the poll, right?
Yeah.
With
Correct.
the Menti, then,
So I can, yeah, if you stop sharing your screen, Jens, then then I can share my screen. I can take you to the Mentimeter. Oh, sorry.
Quick question: is this the only screen that you need for the Mentimeter, or do you need? Oh, you need multiple. Okay, no worries. Because I was going to say you could potentially merge the two if it was just a couple of screens. Just take Jens could just take a screenshot of those two ones and include them in his slides.
You're muted.
You're muted.
Okay, that's great. So
Yes,
that's
great.
That's your.
But, I get the live results on this screen if it's correct.
Yeah.
So that's not a screenshot. It's like it has a backend, I guess. This currently. So, wait, why is it not working?
Do you want me to explain the question also, or will you do that?
Yes, I don't envision I'm talking. So if you could keep giving the narrative under it, that would be great. Yes, I have to remove this answer. Which okay. And then after each question, I stop sharing screen and I give back to you for the after we see the results for every question, I give back to you. You can show the answer, and then kind of like when it's time for the trend 2, I will again be able to do it.
Sounds good. And then in between, we have all of the insights of our panelists. Priyanka, I think that Martin has joined us. Martin, can you hear us?
Yeah,
can we do a quick sound check? And maybe you want to put on the camera?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
I hear you, see you. I'll try to spotlight you just to see whether that works as well. And welcome.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay, that works.
Great. Hi, Maarten.
Hi.
Thanks for being here. And just for you, I think because we before talked a little bit about with the other panelists that we'll just give you like 30 seconds in the beginning. I ask each of you to introduce yourself, just who you are, what you're working on, and any kind of one maybe aspiration or hope that you have for kind of like the future of urbanization. Yeah, and if you are prepared, that I give the floor to you quite at the beginning at the introductions.
Sure.
Okay, So I think we're all set. Emily, is all good from your side? You'll be with us the whole of the session, or are you taking turns with Jen?
I will have to leave. I'll have to leave 45 minutes in, I think, to go set up the session after this.
Okay, but you're letting people in as of when you're letting people in. The live stream will be on at one point, and then yeah, there is no one that is in the waiting room here, right?
No, not at the moment. So yeah, when it gets to a couple of minutes to, I'll start the recording. I'll turn my camera and mic off, but if you need to reach me, then you can message me privately in the chat box. And yeah, I'll take care of the waiting room and stuff, so don't worry about that. Are you happy with the spotlighting then as well?
I can do the spotlighting if that's what you mean. Yeah, once I will start. So I do have to spotlight myself. I cannot spotlight myself, probably. So at the beginning.
Be able to, if I spotlight you.
Okay, yes, one can spotlight him or herself. Okay. Just one thing, Jens, did you, those slides and that you just showed, do you want to send them to us, or you did already to Anna-Marie? Or
yeah, but I'm now making a PDF, so I'm sending it right away.
Just as a backup, I mean.
As a backup, right?
Case.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
I'll do that. Do I send them just to Anna-Marie or also to you?
Yeah, just to Anna-Marie, that's fine.
Okay.
As long as one of the two has a backup, that's fine.
Oh, I think we said that we just send it to Sandra. Yes, please, just to you, because I will not be in a position to share my screen.
Okay, I'll do that.
Do that. It's a file transfer.
I'm sending it now by mail, Sandra.
Yeah, by email, because it is asking.
It's 4 megabytes. It's 4 megabytes. So
yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Just send it without any codes. Access things. Too much technology will drown us. Just a simple attach thing. Okay, I'll fill my glass of water and I'll be back in a second.
Tom, there's an Alexandra in the waiting room. Is that an interpreter or?
I don't think it is, no.
1 second. No, it's not.
No, and it's not a speaker.
No. Are all the speakers in here then?
Yeah.
Yes,
Lovely.
we are complete.
Brilliant. Okay, in that
Unlock the
case,
room.
let's
Yeah.
remove that, and then I'll remove the host link access from the platform form right now.
Yeah,
We're going to be live very shortly, guys. We have 51 seconds remaining. Okay.
I will start the recording now then.
That's fine.
Good luck, everyone.
Good luck to everyone, indeed. Would be nice to be all together, but these are the times.
30 seconds remaining. $15, 10. And you're live in 3. Go.
Yes. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon from Berlin again, and good evening from those who are still on a Friday afternoon with us. I feel like it has been an urban marathon, and that we are at kilometer 35 maybe as of now. And it is really nice to have you all together on this last afternoon of the Urban Collaboration Platform. Today, it is about, and this session will be looking at urban futures and innovative solutions we see in our work. We said it the first day. I mean, if cities are part of the problem, urbanization and exacerbation of global challenges, climate exclusion, inequalities, and exposing, like someone put it these days, exposing the most brutal forms of poverty as well, then cities must be part of the solution as well. And in this session, we'd invite you really to explore what the urban horizon looks like and what can be done to inverse the trends in the eyes of our guests today, and maybe also with the insight of the public. And the solutions, of course, to complex problems can never be found alone. We need diverse backgrounds, we need experiences to work together. We need research and data scientists, community activists, and community workers, as such the Red Cross, innovators and technical expertise. We need planners, strategists, and maybe designers, and risk specialists along with decision makers as well. I'd like to just take 2 minutes and give you maybe a little anecdote as an architect and as a humanitarian worker, and then one that's a bit seasoned as well. 25 years back, I was involved in rebuilding the divided city of Mostar in Bosnia after the war. It took me months to pull together information. It was a puzzle of different parts of city maps, identifying before and after, getting information from diaspora over the phone probably. In 2010, when I joined the Red Cross in the post-earthquake effort in Haiti, then we could start accessing aerial maps, information to locate also people quite rapidly. And I recall that, you know, people had left the city of Port-au-Prince, and we had a US university that was developing an app, a tracking mode, phone on the phone, tracking the phones, and that allowed us to understand where people were, the people in need. And we used community enumeration as a way also to get direct information, you know, who was whose neighbor in a flattened city. It took us weeks, still weeks. In Ecuador in 2016, while being developed on, you know, one of the 3 ground zeros of cities, we have and we saw vast self-organized networks of young professionals that started crowdfunding initiatives and replacing also more standardized supply chains of goods to the cities in need. we started to see, you know, ODK and these Kobo collects and these cloud-based assessments. And within days, we had information to act upon. In Beirut, just last year, the port's blast explosion, within the first 24 hours, the Lebanese Red Cross teams on the ground could report back the damage that they were seeing on the building street by street and upload that information on a database where the city and its buildings had been scanned already based on the level of damage from above. And this information could be then cross-checked within remote support by structural damage people, universities, and inform humanitarian need within hours. If I had to put, you know, those 20 years on a timeline, I think it is just mind-blowing in terms of scale, speed, and, you know, understanding the city. Just this morning, we've heard a lot around innovation in earthquake simulation, drills being activated in Manila, and outreach to residents of a huge area of the town Manila on Facebook Live. The drills were just reaching out to people in real time. And their volunteers, all of the Red Cross volunteers that were then located and GPS located in town, they were tracking, for instance, floods based on the crowdsourced tweets they were seeing about some of the areas and just go and activate some of the mechanisms. Engaging citizens and generating new forms of knowledge, I think, is just key, and we've heard it over the days. Combining citizen-generated data to support risk reduction and create safer cities. But this is just the trailer. I'd really like, and I don't want to spoil it here, it's a journey in which we're seeing a growth in numerous ways of activating networks of people and of services and new digital wave to unpack the complexity of the city. Today, I want to hand over in the capable hands of Anna-Marie of the Solferino Academy, who will be hosting this session, and myself, of course, forgot to introduce, but I think after 3 days, you've seen and heard my name a few times, and I'm still Sandra working at the RCRC in Geneva, but it is a collective effort, and it's my privilege today also to have people who are people that I admire professionally or personally, and you know, whose work I see and we partner with. And I hope that these panelists and distinguished guests today can inspire you as much as they have inspired me in the last months and years of work. So with that, I will hand over to Anna-Marie, and hopefully we will make this as well an engaging session on a Friday afternoon. Take a big breath and continue the marathon with us. Over to you, Anna-Marie. And thank you for being here.
Thanks, Sandra. Yes, and as Sandra said, I'm Anna-Marie and I work for the Solferino Academy as part of the IFRC. And I'm calling in from Rome, which is, I think, one of those cities that speaks to the imagination, and as maybe as some others, but as one of those cities also that shows how quickly the face of cities can change and how much it can change throughout time. But it's really a pleasure to be here today with everyone online, and definitely with the people contributing to the session, the panelists including. And as Sandra said, it's great that we have such a diverse profile of people here today. Because more than a file, I guess cities become the context and the backdrop against which we will see life play out in different ways in the coming decades. And it's really great that we have people here today who can speak about the realities and about those contexts in different way, and start kind of building up a layered system of interactions, expectations, risks and opportunities that we see when we think about the way that the lives of people can change in cities in the coming years. So I would like to ask each panelist to introduce themselves shortly and maybe tell us who you are, what are you working on at the moment, and also like maybe share one hope that you have for the future of cities and urbanization. Maybe if I can invite Joanna as our brave external panelist to go first. Over to you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. So I'm Joanna Dabaj. I'm the co-founder and principal coordinator of Catalytic Action. a charity that works to empower vulnerable children and their communities through participatory built interventions. I'm an architect and a researcher, and my recent work revolves around working closely with displaced and host communities in Lebanon to co-design inclusive educational and recreational places. This includes participatory research, co-design, and community-engaged implementation of built interventions with a focus on play and the public realm. So throughout my practice and research, we try to embed intersectionality and diversity into participatory design to address inequalities. I hope that the future of urbanization is more inclusive and participatory, especially with the young residents. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Alexandra, over to you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Annemarie, and thanks a lot, Sandra, as well, for your nice introduction. So my name is Alexandra Rüth. I'm heading the Department Knowledge and Innovation at German Red Cross International Corporation, and where, in fact, we cover different sectors, thematic areas, and the urban unit. And you have met virtually, I think, quite a lot of my colleagues over the last days, and even before, maybe in urban sessions. I personally come more from a rural background, I would say, because I'm by profession an agricultural scientist, but over the last years in different experiences working on anticipation, on disaster risk reduction, I mean, I noticed that the urban setting is really one of the future challenges in humanitarian work. One hope is, to keep it short, I think one hope would be that we have strong local actors knowing their strengths to support the most vulnerable in urban settings. And I know we have already a lot of champions, but I think it would be good if we could have more strong champions. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. Priyanka, maybe over to you.
Thank you, Annemarie, and thank you, Sandra. Sure, so I am Priyanka. I work with the Kenya Red Cross as an innovation officer, currently based in Nairobi and Mombasa. I basically try and manage most of the innovation initiatives that we have here at the Kenya Red Cross, just to see how we can change our action within the community and try and make it more creative, but also learning from the traditional, ways of humanitarian work, and how can we sort of complement the new technology or the new ways of life to those existing lifestyles. And I think that's very applicable when we speak about urbanization, because we keep speaking a lot about the community facing challenges in the rural, but then now we're looking at how can urban problems be addressed. And I really hope that for the future of urbanization, we can try and see how youth can be more involved in becoming a little more equal in terms of how employment is spread across, but also how the education sector is looked at when we speak about urbanization. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Priyanka. And then Maarten, we'd love to hear from you too.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Maarten. I'm with the Netherlands Red Cross, and I'm leading the 510 data and digital team. And we're supporting about 45 national societies every year with using a bit of data or a bit of digital technology in improving the humanitarian response. I live in the Netherlands, which I guess is not an urban city, but an urban country. And personally, I'm also working with my team on in the urban cities or the urban centers of the Netherlands to support undocumented migrants to a fully digital engagement and digital platform to support them, especially now through the COVID crisis, where they are excluded from everything. My hope for the future, I think it is to make really good use as a Red Cross movement of the high level of connectivity that is there, especially in urban areas, to ensure that we stay engaged and connected to people that need humanitarian support, and that we can also increase our efficiency in doing that. Like Sandra also said, increase the speed in which we can get things done.
Thank you so much, Maarten. As you see, a very interesting and layered panel of people that we will be hearing from today. And all of that couldn't be possible without Jens Aerts, who is joining us to help frame the session and really introduce some trends that he has on his radar as an urban planning practitioner. So I will hand over to Jens, who I believe will also introduce himself and tell a bit more about his background and which perspective he's coming from. Yeah, over to you, Jens.
Okay, thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I'm also very keen actually to get to know some people who are on the panel in a better way. So I'm also very curious to the answers or the discussion later on. I'm based in Brussels. I'm an urban planner, and I'm leading a team on spatial research in a private company which is called Buur, part of Sweco, which is an urbanism company. I used to work in UNICEF, and I've also been supporting some global programs around children and young people safety. And it has always struck me when I started working more in the UN environment that urbanization is seen as something very important, but it's very difficult to grasp because it's very complex to address actually the scale and the pace of urbanization, as Sandra referred to. So I will not give the answers, but I'll just set a tone that offers you the possibility to react and to answer. I'll share my screen to give you just some insights on basic data that most of you might also know. Just checking can you see my screen? Probably not yet. Maybe you can see it now?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, great. So I'm starting with a picture of my hometown, which is now Brussels. Just saying that although it's I would say, like in general, a wealthy city, one of the most wealthy areas of the world, I would say, actually in the same urban area as where the Netherlands is related to. I think it's also a very dual city. It's a city that is at one side wealthy but also deprived. It's green, but it's also very mineral, and it has a kind of international ambition, but it also is very local and very human scale. And so it has also a very young population, a very colorful population with a lot of languages. And this year, with our spatial research team, we're working mostly on urban health and well-being as a specific topic. Actually, it's not because of COVID. It's a coincidence that it had been decided in 2020 to work on that and to also move on in 2021 on it. And we have some knowledge documents that could be interesting to look at that are available on our website, which is wecourbaninsight.com, that speaks on topics that are really major transition challenges. And as also Sandra said, like, cities are often seen as a problem, but they are also so much a solution. So cities could really move and accelerate on some topics. And for example, we've also now developed a podcast this week, launched a podcast on child-friendly cities, because we also believe that children are the ones that will really move forward much faster, the transition. But anyway, I'm gonna go back to some trends that I was asked to prepare, starting with a nice picture of Jakarta, which actually will be the biggest city of the whole world very soon in 2030. So urbanization by 2030, it's all about big numbers. So to say that we know that there will be 5.2 billion people living in cities. And so there will be, even if we feel, I think most of us feel that we are already living in an urban world since some years, that there will be still 700 million people to add actually to 2030, which actually means there is 1.5 million people that have to be at every year. So it's actually about thinking, especially as urban planning, it's always striking to think that every week you should build a city of 1.5 million people. which is actually the size of Brussels. And of course, it also comes with a major infrastructure cost. Like they calculate that it should be $8 trillion that should be spent in infrastructure spending in the next 10 years. Also knowing that 85% of the GDP is generated in city, it feels like cities will really have to show how to deal with sustainable, resilient economies, for example, how they will treat also the waste, the energy they produce, and to go really moving into showing how to become like carbon neutral cities. Sometimes people think there's a lot of cities that cities is all about mega cities, and it's true that there are mega cities, and they are very much taking attention because they are connecting the global world, and they will only grow. That's true. There's 34 mega cities, and they will increase to 43 in the future. But actually, if you would look at more carefully, you see that actually all kinds of cities are growing. So there's more cities created. There are small cities that become middle-sized cities, and that's happening all over the world, as you can see. And this comes with actually a major housing shortage. So any city is actually dealing with this urbanization rate, and they can't cope with it. So we even see that despite all the efforts that have been done in slum upgrading the last 30 years, because it was really on the radar in the UN also to really invest in that, you see actually that also slum informal settlement growth is again really on the agenda, aside of actually the norm, the more generic issue of actually creating affordable housing. And so then we are going to a poll, and that's something maybe also to already announce that there will be, just to have an interactive discussion, there will be a poll. And I just want to situate before that Annemarie will show the poll on her slide. Just want to show these maps that show actually the urbanization rate. So that means like which countries are urbanizing faster or slower. And at the left side, you see the UK, just randomly took it, where of course there's almost no urbanization anymore. The urbanization rate is 0.8%, because this is a country that already has urbanized towards 85–90%, which is actually where all countries will go in the future. And then at the right side, you see Uganda, where you have an urbanization rate of 5.7%. So Uganda is a country that's very fast urbanizing, almost 6 times faster than the UK. And then it's over to Annemarie. Well, you will share your screen. I will keep on talking. Because there's a Mentimeter, so you can actually go to or your website browser on your computer or to your phone. But I think I'm still seeing my slides, right?
If you stop sharing your screen, yes.
Ah, yes, of course. Sorry, yes. And so looking at these two maps of the UK and Uganda, you have to imagine that in the UK, there's actually a lot of urban planning capacity. You have, and there has been a survey lately by the organization of all Commonwealth countries. And they've done a survey and they've said, okay, in the UK, you see that for every 5,000 citizens, you have 1 certified urban planner. And so with this rate of 0.89%, which is almost nothing, and knowing that Uganda has this urbanization rate that is 6 times higher or 5 times higher, the question that is asked to you is to guess how much people, how many citizens have to be serviced by every urban planner in Uganda. So it's about thinking about, if you're an urban planner, how many people do you have to take care of? Is it 15,000? Is it 175,000? Or is it 400,000?
let's give people 30 more seconds and then we will go to the answer. But for anyone who's just dialing in now, you can go to menti.com and put the code that you see above in the screen. Okay, shall I shall I start handing over to you, Jens, for the answer to people's dying curiosity?
Yeah. Okay, I'll go back to my screen, and the good thing is that there are some winners because the answer on this question was 441,361, so which is very high, which actually means that the urban planning capacity, if you would compare, is 500 times lower in Uganda. And that's, I think, something to, well, it comes with this chart, and of course this is not like pure science, but it's actually showing these charts where you see that there's actually a kind of mirror situation, that the more you see urbanization, the less urban planning capacity is available. And I think that's a good, well, it's a kind of conclusion to go into reactions from the panel.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jens. And as you say, we would love to hear from the panelists on this trend of the scale and pace of urbanization outstripping actually the capacity of our cities and the urban planning capacity to make sure that that's leading in good ways. So we'd love to hear some reflections from the panelists, from their realities. How are they seeing this trend play out? And yeah, to describe any kind of specific developments of interest or any opportunities that they see arising in that space. So I will first hand over to Priyanka to share her insights.
Thank you, Anne-Marie, and thank you, Jens, for that. I think that's very insightful. I personally am quite surprised as well. That's a very big number for, assigned to one person for planning. So if I'm just supposed to share my views on this, I personally feel that there's so much potential, in today's world, but also in the growing cities, and youth are so interested. Hello? Okay, yeah, so there's a lot of, the youth have the potential, and I was just telling some of my colleagues the other day is they're really graduating with great degrees, but when it comes to the application of it, they're very limited, right? So it comes back to underpayment and unemployment. So we're really speaking about how the urban sector or the urban settlements are growing so much, but when we look at the opportunities on the other side, they're not that great. And people are settling down or compromising with whatever is available and settling, with less than what they deserve. So where Kenya Red Cross then also is trying to now see how we can, support them is, give them a bit of different type of skills and empower them with something that can help them not just survive, but also be able to position themselves in the urban world. Similar to what you mentioned around how cities are growing, from being fully urban or primarily rural and urban, and now they're, the urban cities are growing just in terms of becoming more densely populated as well. One of the key reasons behind that is in terms of employment opportunities and education. And we're seeing that here in Kenya a lot is the capital city keeps expanding in terms of the population rate. But when you look at the geographical area or the occupation, I mean, the area that they occupy is not growing. So what ends up happening is it's overpopulated. And when we speak about urbanization, we're also speaking about high-rise buildings. And what this, like in a country like Kenya, for example, we're seeing every second building or every second compound is broken down, and they're starting to construct 20-floor buildings to accommodate for the growing population and house them, right? And it's affordable housing, and also part of the government strategies around affordable housing and access to good and safe housing. But when you think on the other side is they have good housing, but when you look at the infrastructure, you're saying 20 families occupying, 20 floors. So each floor has about 4 houses. All those people are going to be on the road at the same time during the peak hours, going to work, coming back home at the same time. The infrastructure has not changed. So what does that lead to is traffic. When traffic, is introduced to another scale, people are demotivated to, take some certain jobs because they're either too far from where they stay. So the opportunities sometimes are there, but they're not accessible because of the distance. It could be, I'll give you a very good example for myself. Even my office is just literally 4 kilometers from where I stay. Today it took me about 45 minutes just to get home because they closed down one portion of the road, when it just takes me about 5 to 10 minutes on a regular basis. So I think it's all around. As much as we're speaking, or we're always excited about urbanization, there's the other side of our opportunities being looked at, and is there equality in how the balance is kept between meaningful engagement for the youth, but also at the same time access to infrastructure and safety on the other side, and then one person being responsible to do urban planning for so many people has a lot, and it doesn't have to be that situation. So yeah, I think on my side is around ensuring those skills are well applied.
Thank you so much, Priyanka, and really interesting also about what you say about that this is not about making sure everyone survives just, right, but really finding a place in kind of like these urban centers. Handing over to Alexandra.
Yeah, thanks a lot. And perfect that Priyanka just spoke before me. I would echo her experience in Kenya. I was living the last 2 years in Addis Ababa, so Ethiopia, and I mean, very, very similar challenges, I would say. So, it's a big African city known for being a diplomatic hub with the African Union, a lot of UN institutions, really one of the fastest growing urban areas worldwide. So since the 1970s, the population has increased by nearly 3 times. But however, you can see that the spatial expansion of the urban area has been much greater. So that means the density, in fact, decreased. So that is, I did some personal research because I was really interested to understand a bit more this complex environment I was living in. But what I experienced as well is that the urban planning is really not done at all for specific needs, like youth, kids, elderly people are not taken into account. I mean, the green space, for example, is really reducing drastically with the urbanization going on. But on the other hand, you can see as well that compared to the rest of the country, the gross domestic product in Addis Ababa is much higher than in the rest of the nation. But that doesn't really mean that we have an equal system, but it's really about equity and inequity, and we come to this question later. So I somehow experienced that urban planning is often not very sustainable, and vulnerable groups are not considered. So it's really complex and complicated for us as the humanitarian actors. And I mean, since the question was a bit about solutions as well, I did some research for the preparation of this panel, and you can see on the resource page of this conference that there is a lot out, a lot of the Urban Community Resilience Toolkit of the Global Disaster Preparedness Center, the Urban Action Kit, City Heatwave Guide, and I think so. A lot is happening. And for example, the UCP, I think it's extremely important to bring diverse groups and different actors together to discuss. But I was thinking it would be really good as well to maybe have similar formats on national and regional level. Maybe a bit provocative, I would say, we cannot solve all the challenges with only innovation, recognizing that we need to innovate jointly. But I think it's important to keep in mind that volunteers need to be able to apply existing approaches. So we really have to translate the different research, the guidance into concrete actions on the ground. So for me, innovation in complex settings means as well changing the angle, looking at things, changing our way of working, and not only discussing innovation from a more technical point of view. And I think it's important to somehow apply the maybe good enough approach, not to be too scientific, but really to strengthen our national societies on the ground. And I think when we are working in an urban environment, it's often more a question on what are our specific strengths and our capacities, and then to really look into the different partnerships and interact with the system. So how can we create partnerships? What kind of services can we offer, and how can we make a difference? And just my last point would be, in the Red Cross, Red Crescent movement, there are a lot of urban champions. And just to mention some, the Philippine Red Cross, Lebanese Red Cross, Mongolian Red Cross, and there are many more. So I would encourage all of us to learn from those urban champions.
Thank you, Alexandra. And I think you gracefully also just answered a question from the audience there. So thank you for that. Maarten, over to you.
Thank you, Annemarie. Yeah, when I think about this this trend, I mainly think also about the increasing connectivity in urban areas and the opportunity it gives for people. And what Priyanka said, that the huge challenges of movement of people in cities leading to congestion and pollution. I think also now in the COVID situation, and with this high increase of connectivity, there is an opportunity for us all to reduce transport and to work more remotely. I think also as a Red Cross movement, we can apply ways of working that still efficiently and also in a very engaging way work with people in cities without adding to all the, let's say, the movement. So I think that is indeed one connected trend that could also be providing some of the solutions. And of course also what Priyanka said on employability and finding jobs. I think the global connectivity is really opening up doors more and more for people in the whole world to work across borders and actually in more like connected city jobs. And I think youth will be indeed the main driver there. When I look a little bit more at the humanitarian side, Sandra mentioned this example. I think in humanitarian response and assessments in urban areas, I think there's a lot to learn still and a lot to improve. For instance, understanding risk and impact in an urban area requires a much higher level of detail. There's different types of hazards that are there in cities, not just heat waves, but also flash floods. I think there's new challenges there to counter, and I think then sometimes also digital ways of working or data analytics can help to contribute to that. And the example was raised of Beirut, which was a combination of satellite imagery analysis, but also volunteers going to the street and making photos, and the photos were then analyzed remotely by volunteers in other countries, leading to this 24-hour snapshot of damage. I think it will be this combination of finding and mobilizing volunteers that are digitally literate, that are able to work in these ways, and then also benefiting from the skill and the speed that this can bring. And I think also when we want to understand vulnerability in an urban setting, if you compare it to rural, the Red Cross movement has, I think, a tradition to think about the concept of community. But the community in an urban area is maybe a bit different concept. And mapping vulnerability and understanding vulnerability in cities is also very much about infrastructure and services and access to those. So the methodologies to understand and map risk and vulnerability should also be adapted to this. And some of these toolkits are, of course, already there, but they need to scale in our work so that we have equal quality in the way that we understand urban vulnerabilities as well as rural vulnerabilities. So I'll leave it at that. Back to you, Anne-Marie.
Great, thank you, Maarten. And I see also that some questions are coming in as you speak, which is great. And please keep asking them. At the end, we'll have an opportunity for the panelists to go into some of the questions you ask. And Joanna, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Anne-Marie. So I will move to the context of Lebanon, where I think of urbanization in the context of displacement. Lebanon continues to host the highest number of displaced per capita in the world, which has put pressure on infrastructure and services in the country. It is home to 5.9 million people, out of which 3.2 million are in need. With the increase of population, with the influx of Syrian refugees to Lebanon, and the government halting any decision to establish formal camps for displaced Syrians, informal tented settlements were set up in neighborhoods and along the vast agricultural fields, such as in the case of Ber Elias town in the Bekaa Valley, that we worked in since 2015. So in the case of Ber Elias, it's a peri-urban town in the Bekaa Valley, and it is one of the most vulnerable localities in Lebanon, with a population of around 60,000 Lebanese, 7,000 Palestinian refugees, and 45,000 displaced Syrians since 2011. And the wave of displacement of Syrian refugees to Ber Elias resulted in a very rapid population growth. At Catalytic Action, our work is about empowering vulnerable groups, including children, their communities, through participatory built interventions. And we follow this co-production process to deliver a dignified built environment where everyone can take part in the creation of these inclusive and equitable, sustainable communities. And following this participatory process, especially in such context, is very important. Sorry, I'm just asking to be pinned to the conversation because I think it's still Jens showing in the panel. So, because thank you. So yeah, if we follow this participatory process in such context, it's very important to empower the vulnerable communities, as Alexandra just mentioned. How do we actually engage the vulnerable communities in such design and decision processes? And through an example of a project that we implemented in this town that we piloted as part of a research project, which enabled us to do a longer process of participation, we called it the participatory spatial intervention. It allowed us to see the voices and capacities of the people recognized, and it enabled us to transform some social relations only by bringing people together into a process on equal terms. So we adopted, for that reason, a citizen science approach, during which we recruit and train community members to represent the diverse communities living in that town. And through this process, they learned how to research infrastructure needs and problems, as well as vulnerabilities of different people living in the town. And together with their own communities, so they outreach even to more members of their community, they developed a design that would address their needs and aspirations and participated in the construction as well as monitored the intervention. So this co-design process, through it, we converted a public space that's a street sidewalks into a social place, but it helped change the narrative from refugees representing a burden on the town of Perelies to helping the town become a better city to be proud of. And it was amazing to see, after we monitored the interventions 2 years after, that it created the new square of the town where different protests and celebration are happening, and how such small intervention of fixing the sidewalk, making it more inclusive, adding some benches, shade and sidewalks, enabled like more smaller intervention that were led by the community itself. So for us, this proved how when there's a lack of authorities to plan and address the needs of the different communities living in the country, small actions can really indeed go a long way with their impact. And I will drop a few links that you can, through which you can learn more about this specific project, and a short video that we developed about the monitoring 2 years after, so you can learn a bit more about the impact. So if you can share them, thank you.
Thank you so much, Joanna. And I think to this trend, really powerful to hear that as we expect probably this capacity to be outstripped, and also the services, as people mentioned in the chat, to see kind of like what type of initiative is useful and very much needed to try to speak to that, even if it is in smaller ways than maybe are needed in the face of kind of all the problems we see. I would hand over back to Jens, who will take us into the second trend and dive a bit deeper into these possible futures that we are able to see on the horizon. Over to you, Jens.
Okay, hi again. Well, thanks for the answers. I really liked all the reactions, and just adding what I also meant with this introduction, it was exactly actually recognizing all of us that we need as a global community to really highlight that cities, but also national governments really should invest in it, because it's not there. It's not, we cannot assume that there is good urban planning coordination that indeed leads to, at one side, very dense solutions that are not sustainable, or also very much sprawled solutions, as Alexander was relating to in Addis Abeba. And I also think that exactly it's more the community-based solutions that really can be resilient, to show to the local authorities that it's possible, that it's very sustainable to work with communities on very small scale projects, maybe in the beginning, but then really can become a kind of habit and culture about how to plan and live together in cities. Now, the second issue is already mentioned a lot in your answers. I was just wanting to relate to some specific spatial challenges. If you refer to, it's like the infrastructure challenges. Like some cities, you see that some cities, even with little resources, have been able to plan. Like, for example, Curitiba. This is a picture of Curitiba, where you see like they have been just simply being able to plan to protect some green spaces that have like natural richness and value, but also just simply social value. But unfortunately, it's not the case in the most cities where you go. You see a lot of infrastructure, so you feel like there's some resource investment, but that everything is gray, very mineral, not thought with people, and also like not actually really on the human scale, and really thinking about how someone in a daily matter should be able to move in a decent, safe, comfortable way to a potential place in the city where there's work. And because it's true that cities have a lot of potential, they offer jobs, but if you can get there or if you feel unsafe, actually these cities are absolutely not attractive and livable. And particularly you see like this issue that is still very prominent in cities, unfortunately, is that there's a lot of road safety issues that are really problematic for young people and families, because the more disadvantaged, they don't have a car, they will have to cross the streets and there's nothing for them. And so you have, especially in the category of the adolescents, you see that road traffic accidents become the major cause of death. And that's very sad, because they are the future. They are the ones that have been educated, they are going to school, etc. And just to have a statistic, like if you look at the access to public transport, someone referred to it, and it's really an issue that actually averagely 50% of cities do not, 50% of citizens, they don't have access to public transportation in cities, which is a bit a kind of paradox, because you usually think that in cities you are able to move, you are able to get everywhere, which is not at all the truth. And so going to the second poll, and it has been already mentioned, like the importance also to create public spaces and green spaces in cities, because they're vital for people, especially for young people. So UN Habitat has started to analyze systematically 220 cities to have a good view on what's happening, because if you don't calculate, if you don't have a baseline, it's very difficult to build a program on it. And so they've analyzed the percentage average of population that has access to an open public space within 400-meter distance, because 400 meters is a bit seen as that's where you can easily get to. That's a kind of neighborhood scale space where you potentially could go on every day. And so the question is, and that's what Anna-Marie has to show, so I'm stop sharing.
Yes, thank you.
And so you can go back to the Mentimeter. There will be a second poll. Which is how much is the percentage of global urban population that has access to an open public space in 400 meters. So that was also a question. So you can choose between 47%, is it 62%, is it 79%? .400 meters is a lot, actually.
Maybe we do 15 more seconds and then...
It seems like quite clear.
Okay, I will stop the slide and...
Yeah, okay, I'm just gonna share one more time my screen and to show this. Sorry. So it's 47%, so 96 cities could afford to give averagely access to public space. But what's interesting in the graph, if you look at the below bars, there's actually a lot of cities, like 42%, 42 of these 220 cities, they have less people there's less than 10% of the population that has access to green space. And so you see like a lot of cities, and these are typically the cities where you are also working, there's no access to public space. So over to you.
Thank you, Jens. And yeah, and we would love to hear from the panelists again on how they see this trend play out in their working environments, but also in their lives, of course, as inhabitants of cities. And I think what's really interesting here, that also compounded by the previous trend that we talked about, is that the way that these quality spaces are unequally distributed happens, of course, sort of between urban and rural, but also most definitely within urban centers, and then also quite differs across different groups, whether that's kind of like age groups or different backgrounds or different socioeconomic status. So there's a lot of layers under that, I think, that probably are interesting to hear about. And maybe we can first hear from Joanna about your thoughts.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. So I would like to focus now a bit more on children. Children make up around half of the refugee population worldwide and 40% of the 80 million displaced people globally, with the majority settling in urban areas. The quality of spaces available for children has an important impact on their development and well-being, as Jens also just presented. And as displaced families often settle in the poorest parts of the city and live in overcrowded, poor quality housing alongside the most vulnerable residents, their children often suffer from poor access to quality learning and play spaces. We developed the DCID handbook, which is like a handbook or like a toolkit with a series of tools that discusses how co-designing built interventions with children affected by displacement can empower children to have a long-lasting positive impact, to improve social cohesion, inclusion, social capital, and integration between refugees and host communities and within the refugee community itself, to have a positive impact on the local economy, build capacity and provide employment, and to deliver better social infrastructure for children and their communities. But despite their impact, there's an undersupply of built interventions that have been co-designed with children. As a response to the Beirut port blast, we have been working on enhancing and rehabilitating public spaces in the neighborhood of Karantina in Beirut through a co-design process, especially with children and young residents. Karantina is an underdeveloped neighborhood in Beirut with a long history of marginalization, often considered one of the most vulnerable in the city. And this area has long hosted several displaced populations coming from different backgrounds, such as Armenians, Palestinians, but also Syrian refugees most recently. It is located approximately 600 meters away from the blast location, and therefore it was drastically impacted. So with children not being able to go to school because of the COVID as well and the lockdown during that year, and having their streets and homes destroyed, we decided to work with them on gaining a sense of control and belonging by rehabilitating their public spaces and starting from the Karantina public garden that was initially neglected and close to these children. And then we moved to also rehabilitate street sidewalk as crucial public spaces. And the background photo that I show here is one of these small interventions that we created, transforming a neglected public land, the sidewalk, into inclusive and playful public space for the children. And actually I was really, I found it fascinating that my picture is almost exactly so similar to Jens' picture, but they're very different contexts. I don't know if yours is in Brussels, but also with the child using the bench as to use it to play on the bicycle. So I found that fascinating, and it shows how much such maybe small intervention in the public space, if it's done also from the perspective of young residents and young children, it can really enhance their well-being and enhance acknowledging them as important also members of the society and the community, that we also need to hear their voices. So co-designing with children is a process of working with them using these participatory tools to develop design, vision of the space, and also engaging them in contributing to the construction, such as painting the mural or like helping us decorating few elements of the space, therefore giving them a crucial role in deciding how to shape their surrounding. So I'll also now drop few more links if you want to learn more, because 3 minutes is never enough to speak. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Joanna. And yes, 3 minutes is not even a trailer, so please share those links. That would be great. Thank you. Maarten, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Annemarie. Yeah, I was just, I keep thinking about the statistic that Jens showed of the extreme lack of planners, and what you can expect with so little planners in the development of cities, and how they rapidly grow without proper access really built into it. And also how much this differs from my own country, where every inch is planned, and there's so much community consultation, engagement, and so many processes of being able to give your input, and also to vote against the plans. And it's such a high interactive system in the Netherlands, and this complete opposite, where there's not even an urban planner to properly help build and design the physical environment. And I was thinking, like, what can the humanitarian organizations do? Because the humanitarian organizations are not going to do the urban planning, but what we can do is lobby and advocacy, and to be the voice of people that are living in very marginalized parts of the city, with very little access to services. And also to put the brand that we represent to use in that lobby. But to do that effectively, at least from my experience, you need also to bring some facts and some data to the table, not just words and stories, but also facts. I think the whole mapping community can go to the next level in providing these type of statistics of how many people share certain services in part of the city, and to bring these statistics on the table of the lobby towards, and not just the lobby, but also the collaboration with city administrations to try to pledge for some change. And in the end, I think if you're able to reduce the distances that people need to travel to certain facilities, you're going to reduce, and that was my earlier point, reduce dramatically the transport and movements within the city as well. So this is the physical access to services. I also want to mention the exclusion that doesn't follow specifically from physical access, but also from being not part of societies. At least in the Netherlands, if you look at the very extreme side of the humanitarian situations, I mentioned these undocumented migrants. They're basically not part of society. And at this moment, the society is extremely locked with the QR codes for COVID. We've never seen it like this. But if you're not registered, you don't have social security numbers, you're not going to able to actually participate in societies, even if the services are there, like in the Netherlands. So another thing that humanitarian organizations can and should do, I think, is really connect to these groups and ensure that they know where to find services that are still accessible to them. And so to play a referral role, there's always small initiatives, small volunteer groups that are doing something for every community, and to be able to bring people to those places where they can actually receive help. And I think that is also part of increasing access, besides the lobby for the change in the built environment. I'm handing back to you, Annemarie.
Thank you so much. As we have 2 more panelists to hear from, and maybe a few questions to answer, I just wanted to let people who are joining the live stream know that we are likely to run a bit over, but hopefully you are as interested as we are to hear a little bit more. So bear with us, please. Alexandra, I would invite you to share your thoughts.
Thank you, Annemarie. So, I mean, it's, as Jens said, it's a lot about equity and inequity, and maybe some philosophical ideas. I know it's not complete, but I mean, basically every life is equally important. But the reality of inequity is that people simply do not have the possibility to take decisions. So I personally think that the decision making should be somehow the focus of our humanitarian work, to really give the most vulnerable the possibility to decide. And I mean, we made huge progress over the last years on cash programming. We are part of social safety nets. So for increased participation and decision making. And Joanna and Priyanka mentioned as well how important participation in programming is. I came across as well on an interesting artwork, and I want to share this experience here. There is an artist called Anna Rosling Rönnlund working on what toothbrushes tell us about inequality. And I found it extremely interesting because she collects photographs of everyday objects from the richest to the poorest households. And even the toothbrush, she says, can reveal a world of inequalities, you know, from a finger and mud using to clean teeth, or to a wooden stick, a family toothbrush, electrical toothbrush for every family member one. And I think that shows, makes it very, very visible. And isn't it, my question or my ask is to the humanitarian community is, isn't it one of our tasks as well to make inequity visible? And that is what Martin mentioned as well. We as humanitarians, we are not influencing urban planning, but we can do policy work, we can do advocacy work. So how can we jointly create awareness? And just thinking about the wonderful work of the Red Cross Red Crescent Climate Center to include art and all kind of more creativity in our work. Maybe as a last point to mention that to really understand the complexity of urban settings, we somehow have to zoom out. And to zoom out, we need more data, more analysis, more, really joint key messages. We need the overall perspective. And I think we really have to support national societies and local actors in digitization, in really enabling to zoom out and for decision making. Because as I said before, I think it's really important to support the decision-making power of local actors and to remember that inequity is as well the lack of decision-making power. I think I will leave it here. Over, back to you.
Thank you so much, Alexandra. And then Priyanka, we'd love to give you the closing voice.
Thank you so much, and I really love everything everyone has said, and it kind of also, it's interesting that it also relates to what I had to say, around how do we co-design, how do we involve the youth or the children a bit more, also around how do we make this more, it's not as simple as saying is this about equity or inequity, right? It's more complex than this, and I think from where we come as well, it's mostly around when we talk about art and creativity, and we say that we want our urban cities to look more beautiful, and we want it to look more inclusive, and we want to keep a balance between green spaces and also have accommodation or accommodate for the growing population. The question is, we can't, the real answer is we can't achieve everything. But then how we apply the innovative measures or the creativity into actualizing that is possible. So I'm going to get everyone to think about, you know, how we watch the movies, and we always think about the future after we watch movies where we see spaceships flying, and, you know, the cars are going to be basically flying around. We're not going to be driving, so there's not going to be traffic on roads. But then if you think about it, there's going to be traffic in air. So we're just moving one problem into another problem. Technically, the problem remains as it is. It's just the context of it, or the definition, or the look of it changes. We've you know, in Kenya, there's the inequality between the rural and urban areas, but within urban areas, the densely population, or the dense population, you notice, is across the whole city. But then when you look at the informal settlements, it's even more, it's even deeper. And that's where we started looking at how can we then, we can't change the settlement setup. It is what it is. You know, we can't get them all to move out and then reconstruct and put them back in there. So the question is, how do we use existing spaces and transform them? You know, teaching them a little bit around urban gardening, teaching them about vertical farming. How do we get things like hydroponics into their daily life, so that they're able to at least also grow their you know, homegrown vegetables in their backyard, or even in their house. Water harvesting. So these are very basic skills. These are very basic items, or things that you just need to be aware of, and then just apply it. But then, you know, we looked into even setting up, we already have an innovation lab, a fabrication lab that has been set up, and day to day we see everyone coming in with this really cool, funky ideas on how to make new things. And when we take some of these items and apply it to our daily lifestyle or our daily needs, they can really be applicable. Hotels have issues of disposing some of their waste items, but somewhere in an urban setting, somewhere in an informal settlement, within that urban setting, some young man probably has an idea of how to convert that waste into something really great. Right, so it's around not just designing the setup of the urban areas, but also how do we kind of bridge these possibilities, give these opportunities. We're looking at, when someone speaks about something like digital currencies or cryptocurrencies, the question is, urbanization is really going up because everyone wants to buy land, everyone wants to buy you know, properties, because investment in properties is known to have big potential in revenue, I mean, you know, paybacks later on. But then the question is the local population or the communities, because where I sit, my main focus is always about the local community. For me, or for the organization, or for the entire Red Cross movement, it's all around the vulnerable people. And being vulnerable doesn't only mean you're vulnerable because of where you stay or where you're surrounding, but it's also around what shapes the opportunities that come around, and what is the access that you have. So in terms of green spaces in the closest 400 meters, I can't think of the closest one near next to me. I really can't. And I can think of an open safe space, but not one next to me. Probably it's about 7 kilometers away from where I sit. And that's why I think it's so important, even as humanitarian organizations, to really invest into humanitarian innovation, in supporting access to such spaces. Because speaking of a park is one thing, but making sure it's safe, it has the services or the needs at least of those that come to the park. A quick example, just before my minutes run out, is we have this really beautiful central park in one of our other cities here in Kenya, in Mombasa. It's a coastal city, and it has this really nice benches, but the gate is always closed. It's the county actually hired really beautiful, artisans to do really beautiful work on it, and they've painted it, they've made it look really nice. The trees have some color on it. It's got nice grass. It's got this water fountain. It's been about 9 months, and it's never been opened. I don't know what's happening with it, but even whenever it does open, it's like people have lost the interest in it because they've just seen it and they're like, we don't want to go there. On the other side, there's an open space which is accessible, but it doesn't have anything that a youth would want to use, or even for someone to go and just sit there and have lunch or a quick snack. The washrooms there are not hygienic. The space is very polluted with waste as well. There's a lot of plastic pollution there as well. The benches are not clean. So you find a lot of street or homeless people just, you know, sitting there because it's obviously it is available for that room. So I think it's all around meaningful engagement in the humanitarian sector for innovations, and tying our approach to co-designing, going back to what my fellow panelists have said, making sure that they're more involved from the word go. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Priyanka. And thanks for everyone that stayed with us for those extra minutes. It's been incredibly interesting to hear from you. And I think before I'll hand back over to Sandra, I think there have been some questions in the chat also about the role of technology in innovation. And I think if I take one thing from the panel today, it's about kind of that innovation is actually about affecting the way that people are able to participate, co-design, own, make decisions about kind of the way that space is being used, and access to that decision making is being democratized. And that technology can, of course, play a role in that, but is not going off on its own in directions that are not serving that purpose. So I think innovation in the broadest sense of the word, and especially sort of like human innovation. So I will hand back over to Sandra, who can signpost us to kind of what's coming next.
Yes, no, thank you so much. As I promised in the beginning, it has been a super inspiring talk. At least I'm sure that many of you found yourselves in part recognized, and it resonated with your work. As Annemarie just said, there are a few people, and probably also a lot of students that are following us, young architects, young designers, young innovators maybe. And there are questions. One I would have directed probably to Joanna as our youngest of the panel, and is asking also saying, I'm a UK trained professional. I recognize the capacity shortage in the South, but I'm faced with moral issues of ethics and assistance and how to address. I think we all feel compelled by that. How much do we transfer in technology, and how much that we learn from the South and vice versa. And as professionals of the built environment, but not only, we do have a duty of listening and providing, and maybe innovation provides us that space to connect and without replacing anyone. So it's not us deciding on what we will do in a city of the South or vice versa, but that collaboration that is so needed. I think that with that, I will not take more because we have run out of time, and we are also closing this session, this door, but opening another one, which is our final round. In a very creative way, we will be wrapping up the Urban Collaboration Platform, which is all about sharing, connecting, engaging, and inspiring. So if you can, and if you do have still the breath to close and to join us, please do through the platform again. And hopefully, as we said in the beginning, Red Cross, non-Red Cross, younger activists, local NGOs, please do connect with each other. That's the way we see it, and there are seemingly huge opportunities to collaborate in 2022 and beyond. So with that, I will leave you all, and I hope you have a really nice evening, nice weekend ahead, and please join us for the closing moments. Thank you, Annemarie, so much for your support. Thank you to the AB support throughout the session. Thank you, Alexandra, Martin, Joanna, Priyanka, and Jens, of course, on the stage. Thank you.